Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to the first demo for the Black Box Theater today. We're so excited to have dual demonstrations in this space. And I'm Marilyn Ivy from our Society of Watercolor Artists. I'd like to first introduce Carrie Waller. She is a watercolor artist working in a realistic, detailed style, an explosion of color. Her studies in interior design and graphic design, as well as her time spent living in Europe and Asia, have influenced her as an artist. Her unique works are bold, vibrant, and dramatic, full of light and color. This is Carrie Waller. Jerome Guerry, an artist from Grenoble, France, where he studied at the Beaux-Arts, is with us as well. Today, he's primarily a professional designer and painter, diving deeply into the delicate waters of watercolor. His figurative work captures the essence of expressive portraits and subtle landscapes, weaving a web of visual narratives. He is an image maker, a witness of his time, seeking to convey complex information through a pictorial medium. His art plays with the filters of human complexion, education, life, civilization, and culture. Would you please welcome Jerome Guerry?
Everybody turn their cell phones off.
Yes. Okay. Yes, please. Cell phones turned off now. Thank you.
You want to say a word before starting?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yep. All right. Good morning. Thank you for being here. You may have to do some jumping jacks to stay warm, but we're going to do it. I'm so happy to be here and be demoing today. I'm so happy to be demoing with Jerome today, so thank you. I'm going to be painting a scene with lots of lights, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my influence for that today. I'll start in just a second, but I'll be doing shiny stuff, glass, and out of focus, and some in focus. So that's what I'm going to be doing for you today.
Hello, everybody. So do you hear me? Yeah. I will try to talk, but I'm not English or American. I'm French, so... So, thank you. Bonjour tout le monde. Hi you all. I would like to dedicate this time to a dear friend who passed away the last month, I think. He's a German painter, and his name is Carsten Wieland. Thank you. And he did a lot for watercolor in Europe and worldwide, because he did lots of internet things and make people participate all over the world with internet and challenges and everything. So. And it was a very, very nice man. So,
All right, we'll get started.
His name is Carsten Wieland, and Wieland is W-I-E-L-A-N-D.
Okay, I'm going to show you a few things before I start, because I'll get questions. So these are my paints. They are all in these little containers. They're Daniel Smith paints. I make my own pans, and I paint with them dry. I do everything I'm not supposed to do, right? So they're in these little containers, and I don't have a palette. So that's how I'll be painting. I'll be mixing my colors on the paper today. I have a little bit, you can kind of see my reference here. That's not the greatest. And I paint mostly from my iPad so that I can zoom in and zoom out. So that is how I will be starting.
Maybe you don't see it on the screen, but I put some tape on my paper and my drawing, and I will remove it later. I'm watching Carrie.
All right, then I'm going to talk. So I have a blurred background on this one. And when I first started painting, I mostly did black backgrounds. And then I kind of like to challenge myself. And so then I decided to have more interesting things in the background. And so this one is going to have a blurred background. So I'm going to try to go through as much as I can. Most of my paintings take a very long time. Oh, I see. So, why? I paint one little section at a time. So I paint one section at a time, and I try to get it established right away, my values, my colors, so that I know that everything is working. I use a lot of colors. I'm not a limited palette girl. Yeah. We asked a lot. So I'm using a bright violet, a carbazole violet, an opera pink. And I'm going to be doing some like little wet on wet sections as I go across. That is Holbein masking fluid right there. And so that's the Holbein masking fluid. I apply my masking with a ruling pen, which I have right here. See? Ruling pens are amazing, but they're not all created equal. So if you use one, try to find an old one in an old drafting set on eBay or something. Mine is from Japan. I lived in Japan for a very long time. A few ladies here that live there with me. This is just my photo. So I take all my own photos for my references with an iPhone, and then I photo edit within the iPhone and Photoshop. So with my process, I'm taking photographs of my still life. Photography is almost as much a part of my process as the actual painting part. So I come up with an idea. Sometimes these ideas are sparked from, I can actually show you where the inspiration for this series came from. So I lived in Japan for almost 9 years.
This is quinacridone gold.
But this is the beginning of this series. This is called Abundance. And this was my answer to living in Tokyo and all of the sensory overload lights and colors. And that was my translation of living there in a still life. Jerome, do you like to work from life or photos?
I used to do plein air before, but now to find the right situation outside is quite difficult. It's too windy, not time, it's cold, and everything. So, if I want to work, I have to make my own photo. How can I say, collection. So I spend a lot of time on the internet looking pictures. I like pictures. I like all pictures. So you can see there is a lot of water and it's very loose in the beginning. The blue is Cyanite genuine. Cyanite genuine. Genuine. Cyanite véritable. It's a kind of gray blue.
I'm coming in now and I'm establishing my darkest darks right off at the beginning. I have some things masked and I have some things left out on purpose. The more I mask and the more it becomes integral to my process, the more I know when to mask and when not to mask. A lot of times my photos will dictate. So I will, I may decide, like in this one, that I want a complementary color scheme. Originally, that's what I'm kind of going for. And then I have my favorite friends and my paints that I know play well together. Some don't. And so there's some colors that I just know I always like to use. And then I also try to introduce new colors. Sometimes I'm a brand ambassador for Daniel Smith, and so I have all of these colors at my ready. So I like to try to introduce a new color when I can to see how it plays well and if it will become part of my regular crew of colors. Recently, these paintings where you have all these lights in here, I need some more opaque colors. So Pyrrole Scarlet. I'd use Pyrrole Red a lot. I use Pyrrole Orange all the time. So Pyrrole Scarlet I started using quite a bit. And then these, some people are worried about using fugitive colors. I use opera pink in a lot of my paints. With the Daniel Smith paints, underneath the opera pink is quin magenta. So if that fluorescent fades out in 50 years, you still have quin magenta. And that's if you have it in terrible conditions.
Yes, exactly. I'm trying to play with the background, so I don't get bored. So and lots of things, a lot of small things or big things are happening with the watercolor when it's wet like this. So I'm trying to be creative or to have big pieces of colored pieces of how should I say, pigmented water, and some are just dry paper. No, because the size is okay for that brush, so it's very wet already. And I want some dry paper to alternate with water or wet paper.
Yes. Yeah, for the most part, I use a size 4. I've got a size 8 over here. That's a big brush for me. He's over here, but for the most part, I'm using a size 4 round. These brushes are from Japan. They're Artige by Camlon Pro, or Camlon Pro by Artige. I got it backwards. They are synthetic. So I go back and forth, but the synthetics are easier to get my hands on. And I really like the springiness of them. And so I've been using a lot of synthetics. Plus, I don't necessarily want to kill anything for my art. I don't. I normally paint on a flat surface. And in these backgrounds, so I can get away from having a flat, big black or colored background, I try to strategically place things like these light strings and things are flowing through this background. And that's so that I have places that can break and I don't have to have a solid wash all the way across. So I try to help myself out like that. Jerome, how long does it normally take you to paint a painting?
Sorry?
How long do you normally spend on a painting?
Difficult to say. Difficult to say because I don't know. You know, it's never finished for me.
I understand.
So
I understand.
and the mistake is to make too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to understand when I have to stop. But my desire to paint is almost stronger than my power to stop. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a very long time, I think, to be simple and stop early. It takes a very long time. Because the habits, because the representations, because the desire to finish something, or the desire to be to have details or something, or I have to get rid of it and let the watercolor do something that is suggestive. You understand? It's not so easy because I'm a former. I draw a lot of before painting. I loved drawings, and I had activities around drawings. Game designer, computer game designer, portraitist with pencils, theater, paintings, cinema paintings or lots of things, books, CDs, or everything. So I love the principle of drawing. But with watercolor, it's quite different for me. It's painting. So I have already drawing skills because I have been drawing for maybe 40 years now. But for the painting skills, it's not the same. And especially with watercolor. Kind of free, So I try to manage with that.
No, I either grid or transfer from photo, depending on how much time I have. So I spent a lot of time in school and college learning perspective and all those things. So if I do transfer or something's out of wonk, it's important that I know how to fix it and put it back in wonk. So unless I want it to be there. So I think it's important, like Jerome was saying, drawing is its own art form, but I can tell with students when they project it if they don't have a good sense of drawing. So it's good to take a class in that if you haven't. But I know we all want to get to the painting part, right? It's the fun part.
I use projector now, especially for big size portraits or something. Yes, it's. I have more time to paint then because it's very long to have the. But I can do without. Yes. Never enough.
That's a great answer. That is a great answer.
But maybe 2 years ago I made maybe 120, something like that. But now, this year less. This year a little less. But I would like. I have a lot of ideas and coming, But I can't. I have to eat. I have to sleep. I have to work, and I have to teach also. So, what about you, Carrie?
Same thing, never enough. I love having deadlines. So I either have self-imposed deadlines, competition deadlines, of course, workshops. You're always painting ahead, so you have references and paintings for those. So I think it varies a lot. I move quite a bit, so I've moved twice in the last 2 years, so that always sets me back just a little bit. I prefer to work on one painting at a time. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. Like getting ready to come here, I've got a workshop right after. I had a thing right before, so I'm getting things, ready ahead of time. So my preference is to have nothing bothering me and sit and paint for a couple. I call it binge painting. So I will like to sit and I will binge paint, and then my house will fall apart, and then I have to go deal with that. But I'm a night owl, so my ideal time is to paint in the middle of the night. I'm away right now, and I bribed my teenagers with money. I was like, they have to show evidence. What? Yes, Steven is driving. My oldest is. That's why I can do more workshops now. Jerome, when do you like to paint?
Sorry?
Do you paint in the morning, night? When do you like to paint? Every minute?
No. No, it's more difficult for me in the morning. More difficult. In the morning, I prepare the set. I prepare things and I paint later. Maybe before eating, before meal, and I don't eat. I like to paint at the meal time. Lunchtime. Sorry. Yes, that's great for me. A lot of light outside the window, and I don't no breakfast, preparing and then painting, and yes, I appreciate like this time, lunchtime. Mm-hmm. I did multiple, but with the watercolor, it's not easy because times are short. So if you have 2 or 3, not easy to control the way watercolor is drying, and maybe for special series I will prepare this multiple. But now it's more. Sorry? I didn't understand. Oh, sorry.
I have always been drawn to tighter paintings, and I'm going to debunk the myth. I'm not going to get looser the more I paint. I'm not interested in that. People see that as like as a slam. I feel unrealistic, or like the tighter paintings, and it's okay. Everything goes. We don't. So I've always been drawn to this, and if you know me, I'm very controlled, and it matches my personality. So.
I would like to paint very big size now. I started small size, but now I would like to paint 1 meter by 1 meter, or what we call diptych or triptych. Very big size. And yes, I would like to try this. That's my next step. They make roars. It roars. Roars. I think 3 or 4 make roars. Roars is a little more than 1 meter high and 10 meter long. Yes. So I'm thinking about it now. And more than 1 meter high and 10 meters long. So you can cut 1 meter, 2 or 3, depends on what you want to do. I'll tell you later because I didn't try now. No. I have the paper. I have the panel. I have some paint. But I did not try.
I saw, does anybody know Randy Globus? I think I'm saying her name right. She does gigantic watercolors. She did them scroll-like, where she had them attached to the top and at the bottom, like a Japanese scroll. And I saw a big exhibit she had like that, which I thought was pretty ingenious. I think it's Randy Globus. Does anybody know from Louisiana? I believe she's Louisiana. Randy Globus, I think. GLO. Randy, Randy. I hope I have her name right, but that's... So I have bright violet, carbazole violet. I've thrown in some opera pink. I have some Aussie red gold. So I love, these are fun because it's this I'm working this wet on wet, and I'm letting the watercolor play. So even though I'm pretty detailed and tight, I like to have these fun plays of control. They're controlled wet on wets is what I like to call them. And they sure are. And that's what drew me to painting glass in the first place. The first time I ever painted glass I realized that there's like 10,000 mini abstracts, and it just hooked me. And so I think when people are intimidated, they shouldn't be, because everything we do in art is color, shapes, and relationships. And if we can not label it and say, like right now, painting this blurry background helps me because my brain doesn't necessarily know what I'm looking at. And when you cannot look at it, that's like people paint upside down, put a mirror, look. However you can get fresh eyes on a painting, it helps you to get away from what you're actually painting and just look at the shapes, colors, and relationships. And in the end, that's what everything is. And I typically paint a full sheet or a little below, but as more and more shipping gets crazy, and some of the international competitions lately have been 15 by 22, a half sheet. Right. So I'm creating pretty much controlled wet on wets. So I don't reconstitute my paint. I always use dry. I don't think there's a difference. I mean, it's the same chemical properties, whether it's fresh out of the tube or not. I don't like to waste paint. So the thought of throwing away fresh paint every time or whatever, I just couldn't get it behind that. But so I just use these pans. And when I started painting in watercolor, I didn't take any watercolor classes. I went to the library. I'm going to date myself. I went to the library. There was no YouTube. I realized the other day I said that, and I was working with a college student, and I'm like, oh, But so I went to the library, and I got the Reader's Digest book on watercolor and worked my way through it. John Salmon was talking about yesterday, there's not very many books on everything, and that one did. And so it was probably a really good book to have. And so I worked my way through the Reader's Digest book on watercolor. And when I was living in Germany when I first started painting, and the art store there only had pans. And so I started with pans, which was fine with me. I like it, and for traveling. And then now I have adapted to my own little system. I don't know if you saw, but these little containers fit on my little bungee cord. So when I'm traveling, and they're at home that way too, but when I'm traveling or they're all together for TSA, whatever, I can just yank them out. They're labeled on the bottom, and they have all the names on there. And then I know I don't have them with me, but I have swatch cards that are swatched. So when I go to start a painting, I will literally pull out. If I don't know, sometimes I already know. The longer you paint, you kind of know what you're going to use. But if I don't, or I want to do a new color, I'll pull my swatch cards out, and I call shopping my paints. And I go through and I see what would work the best in this palette. And then I pull those colors. And I've got them kind of organized like analogous. They're buddies. They're next to each other. So my students love this. These are from Japan. So that you can go on Amazon, though, and they're pillbox, basically like pillbox. These were at a hardware store in Japan. I always love to go to a hardware store. If you want to find art supplies that aren't labeled as art supplies, you go to the hardware store. And so these are hinged at the back. That's the most important thing. You don't want them hinged at the front. Walgreens, do they have the little round ones? The dollar store does have some. I like the translucent ones. I want to be able to see my colors. And sometimes I will make some little washes. Like if I want a more transparent wash, I'll do it up in the lid. I used to have palettes and got away from it.
Carrie?
Yes.
I'm going to make a little noise.
Okay.
I want to dry. Sorry.
That's fine. Yeah, and normally my bucket at home has 3 chambers. I like the chamber bucket. Normally, if I'm paying attention, I have darker in one and lighter, so that I can keep my water cleaner without changing it as often. So my bucket at home has more chambers in it.
Sorry? Or arches.
Texture.
Small, no, not rough.
Cold press?
I don't know the English word. Grain moyen. Middle, normal.
Normal.
This is I scratch. Yes, I scratch. So I give structure to my, because it's drying, so it's a good, I dry it a little with this and scratch a little. Because it's drying, so it's not shining, it's still wet, but matte. You understand? So I have to see how it's going and try to do things now.
I'm using an opaque yellow right now called Bismuth Vanadate Yellow. And I love this yellow, especially for all these paintings that I've been doing with these lights. It's what I call a bully color. It comes in, most yellows are transparent and they're gonna shrink. And this color, I can put it in and poof, it makes all these bursts of color. So it's a great yellow by Daniel Smith. Bismuth Vanadate. Welcome. I like to equate my palette to like the playground. We have buddies, we have enemies, we have bullies. And if you get blooms that get a little hairy, cauliflower, I call them hairy, then I just can go back in and fix that as I'm going. I watch this, I babysit my painting, and I feed some washes as I'm going to get them more saturated. So I'm kind of watching the whole process with these wet on wets, feeding some, controlling others with a thirsty brush. And then I'm trying to work multiple stages of this painting so that I have various areas. Some are dry that I can come back into now. Some are wet that I'm watching. At home, I watch a lot of paint dry. My preferred method. And I like to watch movies. I say watch, but have movies on. How do you paint, Jerome? Do you have music going or?
Yes.
Yes.
Now I will remove the tape. Make holes, paper holes, white paper holes into that. And then, so most of the time I start like this with the first layer, very free. But organized, free but organized. Then I remove the tape when I put tape, and then what time is it?
I was wondering.
11 20 minutes more? Half hour? An hour more? Okay. Maybe yes. So I should go and do it. You see the lines? That gives structure. Yes, very simple tape. For building painting. No. But this has a very good edge. This one you let, this one you let.
They're actually pottery. There's a gold one and a bronze one, and they're a pottery out of England. And I saw them in an antique store, and I had to have them. So we have in the front a focus kind of bronze one, and then the back a gold one that's out of focus, which is what I'm working on right now. Yes, I have a picture. I don't know if we can see it. I'll hold it up. I was going to show you because I photograph inside. So my cat likes to help me. I don't know if you can see, but she's sitting right there. But so this is inside on a table. There's my other cat helping from up there. But so I set them up inside on a table. So these are set up inside, the ones with the light. Ones that are out, like my light bulbs, anything that's daylight like that, I set up outside. I have not found any kind of lights that replicate the sun, like the sun. So I take them outside. I'm kind of the crazy neighbor lady that takes furniture outside and still life and have my table of light bulbs sitting outside. And when in my workshops, we will actually set up a still life outside, and I'll show how I photograph from the beginning, from soup to nuts, of the whole process. Some have been in there and done that. So this background is very wet, and I'm working a section at a time, trying to go in and blur some things because I want it very blurry. I'll be working on the teapot in a minute to show you the non-blurry side, but I just wanted to show kind of these messy but yet controlled wet on wets back here. So even though they're a bunch of colors and things, these are all part of a teapot and they have some kind of story. So it's important where the placement of these colors are. So I do have to pay attention.
Yes. Some details, but not too much. And so this is a portrait. Maybe you know that gentleman is Guy Clark. It's a Texan songwriter. And Guy Clark, it's an old school Texan songwriter. Yes. Guy Clark. Sorry. Guy Clark. I have to alternate details and non-details.
So now that you've kind of seen this process, I'm going to flip over to one with the finished background. And I'm going to show two things. I'm going to show how this side is a little more not blurred out in here. So I'm going to show that process, and then I'm going to work on the detailed teapot. That is not blurred out. Mine is Arches cold pressed, 156 pound. So it's in between 300 and 140. Yes. The 156, I think, only comes that way.
Sorry? Yes. I cannot paint sitting. And yes, okay, the table is a little low for me.
They are kind of low.
Yes. But it's okay. Because I like to have the global, view. If I'm sitting, and no global view. But I have to keep the global view all the time.
I will show you a little tip. So when I go in, so I've got these white spots masked right here, right? So I'm going to go in. This is an old synthetic brush. It used to be a Cheap Joe's brush. It still is a Cheap Joe's brush, but he's got a real bad hair day, so he's all afraid he's been used. So he's no longer good for painting, or unless I want texture. So now what I do is he's strictly my softener. Some of the erasers are a little too hard. They disturb the surface of the paper. So get one of your old brushes and come in. And so what I do is I come in the middle and I push out. And so I'm going to blur this edge and I'm pushing out. And once I get a little pigment on that brush, I'm going to go rinse and I'm going to wipe and I'm going to come back in. And then I always have paper towel. By the time I'm done painting, I've got like confetti paper towel all over the place. And I always have paper towel next to me. And then I'm able to dab out that center. Now, if you really mess up, you can scrub a lot of things out. If you're totally done and you've really lost a highlight, you can always use a magic eraser. I don't do that very often, but if you do, you can. And another little secret now, the watercolor ground is out, and so it looks just like the paper. So if you really do lose some highlights and you don't want white paint, use watercolor ground and come and put back some highlights in with the watercolor ground. It comes in multiple colors, so you could even use a colored one if you wanted, like they have a gold and a black if you're wanting a certain thing, or you can they have white and transparent and buff and several different in the Daniel Smith line. My friend actually had a painting that she dropped a brush full loaded right in the middle, and she was able to go back and use watercolor ground to feather out a section. She used layers and built it, and then redid it and got that painting back to where she could work it. No, because a lot of shows don't accept them. So I hate to put a ton of work into something that might be a showstopper and then I can't enter it. So metallics, do I use metallics? But on the flip side of that, I do use gold leaf quite a bit. And those are for sale purposes or exhibit purposes. In fact, I'm going to be doing an exhibit next year where it's called Good as Gold. And most of mine will have gold leaf in the background or incorporated.
In? Progress. I mean, always testing things. Be brave and test and take risks, and that's how I progress. But I also progress by watching around me, because the way I catch reality is very important for my progress also. So my consciousness has to progress also, because my consciousness is dynamic. It's not, always the same. So it has a huge, if I want to, a huge area progress. How should I say? For me, a good painter takes good decisions successively. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 good decisions. And then the paint is okay. And to take what is a good decision? Not easy to answer. Eh? What is a good decision in painting? Carrie, do you have an answer? Because there is no only one type of good decision. There are lots of.
I think that as an artist, I'm always on a roller coaster. I think some days this is a great decision. Some days this was a terrible decision. In the same painting.
You're right. very famous artist, after working a lot, they can take almost every time very good decisions for their art. Even it's not the people are waiting for. You understand? It's not easy to answer this question, but I ask myself that question: what is a good decision? And can I add 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 good decisions in a painting? And how can I do that? And what I call bad decision is when I do something that will bring problems to me later. You understand? That's a bad decision for me. But it's not so bad, because when there are problems, I have to solve them. So what I call bad decision is not bad decision. But
Right.
if I take good decision or successively good decisions, it will be very, my painting will be very more simple and more achieved. I don't know the English word.
I think we grow from those bad decisions. I
Yes.
try to control my, I work kind of challenging myself. So if I'm doing a painting, I may decide one thing leads to another. So I've done a series. I love to work in series, number one. I think it's important to work in series for me. Every time I learn a little bit more about this object, this process, the next one's even better. Or I think, okay, if I'm doing that in this one, maybe next time. So I used to do a lot of solid backgrounds, and then I thought, I want to have something happening in the background. I was really inspired by Janet Fish. She's a still life artist, and she has a story kind of going on in the background. And sometimes it's blurred out, and you don't need to know, like in this painting, it creates a vibe that's happening. And so a lot of times my next painting or something will be born out of a challenge. So what could I do next with this that would be more interesting? And I like to think about, I have kind of a mission in my art. I want to have tradition or a contemporary still life. And so I've created a client in my head, just like they say in marketing. So I've created a client. I actually, because of my interior design background, have a physical space that this person lives in, and will this art fit in that space? Now, this person is rich, so they have a few houses, so my collections sometimes fit in one house versus another house. But I really try to stick with that, because sometimes when I'm deciding, is this too traditional for me? I want it more contemporary. I will think, does it fit within this space that I would put it in? And if it doesn't, it goes, even if it's a great picture or composition. So like my light bulb series was born out of topics. So in 2014, they were going to ban incandescent light bulbs. As an artist, I thought, oh my goodness, this has been what artists, like this is what's in our house, this is what's been there forever. And so they banned most high ones. Now they still have the lower ones. But that thought in my head, I was like, oh, these are like this precious commodity, like jewels in my house. So I went around and grabbed every light bulb out of the socket and took it outside. And that was all based on reading a newspaper article. And then that series was born the first one I painted was called Band. And then I had all these light bulb paintings. And I'll continue to paint those because I'm very familiar with the light bulbs, and I want to now push it to different levels with my light bulbs compositions. These teapot series came from living in Japan. How could I translate my time in Japan into a still life? And so the teapots and the tradition, and so I've done several series of that with iron teapots, the fragility of glass with the harshness of the iron, all those things.
I'm going to make a little noise. Few seconds.
So I'm watching these washes as they're drying, and I'm adding more pigment as they're drying because our watercolor dries lighter. So I'm going back in and adding more pigment where they're drying. My masking is kind of its own art form. I understand it's a love-hate relationship with masking fluid. I'm very aware. But it's become more and more integral to my process. And I will do varying layers of it as things dry, and I will mask on top of colors to get varying shades of things. But I use it more and more. It's completely part of my process. I use my ruling pen. This is my ruling pen, so I literally just dip it in, and I apply it with my ruling pen. The ruling pens are great because you can get super fine lines with them. You can get very small spaces. It's a learning curve like anything else to use a ruling pen, but if you like it, you get to, I mean, I have gone through every application, except I never ever liked putting it on with a brush. Never liked that. So I've used but I just watched a demo the other day with Joanna Barnum, and she has messed up brushes and intentionally has these brush strokes in the masking. So I may do some of that for texture, but I may try her. But anyway, I use them. I've evolved now to the ruling pen. So even though this is going to be a tighter rendering of this teapot, it's the same techniques that I did in the background, and because of my masking, it's still kind of controlled wet on wets that I'm putting in here. And then as I take the masking off, I will create finer details.
Why not? Why not? I didn't think about it, but why not?
This reflective teapot is kind of neat because I'm in here, and I'm not going to put myself in the painting, but I'll have the shape, but I'm in there, so it's a self-portrait in of ways. It's got my studio in there, paintings in there, all of these reflected. They're one right side up here and upside down on the top of the teapot. I love that about teapots, and especially like the glass teapots. The little lids, sometimes the little round ones, you'll have upside down. It's the coolest thing. Yes, I get really excited when you see things like that. I did a painting where I did art books behind my teapots, and I called it Tea with Friends, and all the lettering and all that was, and then if you put liquid inside the containers, it's a whole nother ball game. I just get really excited about the reflections. I use my ruling pen for a lot of it, my small brushes and a ruling pen. Painting myself right now, but we're just going to become a shape. Carbazole violet works nicely. I use this color a lot. Jerome, do you have a standard palette?
No, I'm looking for my palette. I didn't find it yet.
Oh, no. Bismuth Vanadate Yellow. Bismuth Vanadate. I don't know if he has it here with him. I think he tried to bring a lot of the colors. Does he? Okay. I have my dot card here, and it has most of the colors I think we're using today. It's opaque, so that white paint in there is going to push it out. You can thin it down enough to use it in a transparent fashion, but it is an opaque color. So these paintings where I'm having this kind of glow back here, like right down in here on these lights, I want that, starburst effect. And the opaques will do that. I just did a photo reference for a Christmas painting, and it's got colored Christmas lights. And so I was trying to find all the opaque colored lights to do the same starburst effect. But these paintings, even though they're a still life, they tell a story. And like, I will remember where I'm living because I see my room in here, from this painting. And I try to tell people when they are, you'll meet people, you're a still life artist, and you'll meet people and they'll want a painting of yours. And then they come to you and say, can you paint my 6 grandkids and 10 dogs all in one painting? And so I don't do that. And so I try to educate them because a lot of times they want a piece of you. They know you, they like your work. And how can I translate that into a still life? So the same way with like living in Tokyo, translating that into a still life, I now do a favorite things series. So I can tell the story of a person through objects. And who doesn't have, like your grandmother's teapot or your, something like that. I did one from my daughter of my English teacher in high school commissioned me, and we did her favorite books and her picture of her garden and her mug, and it told a story of her, which I think is more interesting. As a still life painter, I'm biased. I think it's more interesting. It's the same throughout this whole process. It's shapes, relationships, color, just getting them all in the right place. Fun. There's my little upside down paintings over here. My fireplace. So I softened this one over here. You can kind of see how I've pushed out on this side, softening. And that's what I'll do on the inside of this teapot when I get everything finished, cleaned up. But my paintings generally take in between children's schedules and teenage. My son right now loves to come down. I'll get going on a painting and can you help me study? Not going to say no. So in between life, my paintings take anywhere from a week to 4 weeks, depending on the size and what's going on. But thanks to COVID, when I was doing a lot of online classes, I pretty much could get an 11 by 14 done in 9 hours. So if we had 7 more hours today. But it was good to know. It did force me to know how long it really does take me, if you push it and everything. And if you probably all heard in there, she talked about taking work in progress pictures. Make sure you're doing that. Work in progress pictures and time lapse of your paintings. I will tell you, having just judged Women in Watercolor and one other show, they're asking artists sometimes if they're not sure to prove that it's not AI. So make sure you have pictures and videos of yourself painting. Not everybody, but some were in question. Reference photos should always be your own photo. That's pretty much in the prospectus, but the actual painting, some of them were in question. So, even more important to reiterate, taking work in progress pictures. We're in an interesting time. And AI will produce, you can say a watercolor of da 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 da, da and it will put some, yeah, so exactly. And so they've, some people may try to enter those, especially if it's an online competition. So that's why you have to make sure you're protecting yourself and you have images. In addition to, it's good to have if you want to have an article or even for social media promotion of yourself. I'm using Pyrrole Orange. This is one of my favorite oranges. I started loving orange after living in Japan. And I think where we live influences us a lot in our color choices, what we like.
I'm using toothbrush. I love toothbrush. Very good, because you can influence the zone without touching it. With color, with little drops, big or little. And for the skin, it's good because there are lots of spots and things. And I love to do that. If it's dry, I have a very precise spot or points. If it's a little wet, very good also. Makes beautiful things for me. I like it very much. But I don't want the people to see it first. It's, it's delicate. I know it's not a... And especially when you are very... the colors are fragile. That's very good. If, for example, if I want to a zone more yellowish without touching it, I take my yellow and just do very softly much. And we don't see it's coming yellow, but it's so... If I do this many times, then it's coming yellow. But I don't touch the structure. I do it again. Ooh, too much. Yes, I like it like this and also there. Yes. But I can also make glaze above all this when it's good, when it's very dry. I don't know what time is it if I have 20 minutes more? Sure? So I will make a little noise again. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to go in here in this space. I'm going to show you how this yellow...
Sorry?
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm going to show you how this yellow, see how it spreads out?
Oh, you made it very, very quickly. That should work.
Yes, that's the bismuth vanadate. So it will push. Do you see how it pushes? Some paints will just come in when you do that. This one pushes out. So it creates this like fiery glow with the bismuth vanadate. This is quinacridone gold, one of my favorite colors. I think quinacridone gold's in every painting. This one right here. This is Pyrrole Orange. It's a great orange. Pyrrole Orange. It's one of my besties.
Que je peux prendre l'appareil.
Yeah, pyrrole orange is fantastic. So if you're trying to make a candy apple red, you glaze over it with a pyrrole orange. So I love to glaze my reds. It's really hard to get a red to do what you want out of the tube. So if you glaze over with pyrrole orange or opera pink and pyrrole orange look really nice together. So if you use it as a glazing color, also it's a beautiful color. Pyrrole orange.
I take a photo of this now to make decisions. I should do that. So you don't see it anymore, but I can see it. So I like this because it transforms. It turns it into another thing and gives me another vision, my phone. And this screen also is very nice because it gives me another vision of what I'm doing. This is interesting. So now I have yellows and oranges and grays. And I would like to introduce some red, maybe, because it's a little too much. Yes, maybe some red or alizarin. And maybe some greens, small.
Even though I paint with a lot of colors, I have strategy behind my colors. And this one, there's a complementary color scheme. There's other colors thrown in, but I'm strategic about them. I like to do triangles of color. So if you have it in one place, you try to have it. So if there's opera pink here, I should have opera pink somewhere in here and here. So it's bouncing your eye around in a triangle. So my rule with colors is if you introduce one, it should be in 3 places in your painting, at least. I also use the rule of odds with still life objects, which is there should be an odd number. It's just more interesting design-wise. I have an article this summer that was in the Artist magazine about the rule of odds. There's a lot of design principles when I'm thinking about these still life setups, and I photograph them a lot of times, and then I kind of look through and pick the ones that, now this is breaking it. I have my object kind of dead center, which is not always a great idea. Your main focus should be off center, but for demo purposes, I'm okay with that. If this was a big competition piece, I would try to have that out of the center for more interest. And my lights, the way that they come in and pull you through the painting are also, I try to have them where they're not leading you out of the painting, but they're pulling you back in. I try to think about a lot of those things when setting up the still life, photographing it, and the final painting that I go to. So I'm really mulling through a lot of design principles. Pull in some perylene red. My wet on wet. When I do these wet on wets, I try to have 3 versions of every color, a light, medium, and a dark. So if I have my bismuth vanadate as my light, my pyrrole orange as my mid-tone, then perylene red will be my dark in the orange family. So when I'm thinking about my palette, also I try to think of 3 versions of each color, at least. And it's important that you don't, you really try to think of this as shapes and objects and not what it actually is, because you want to be painting all the time the shapes and the objects, because that's how you'll get the more realistic looking, as opposed to saying, I'm painting a spout, I need to make this and this. Really not even thinking about what I'm painting, what the shapes, colors, and relationships are. And what Jerome said is great, to take a photograph in the middle is really nice, so that you can see it. And also you can flip it into black and white so easily now on smartphones. You can kind of get a value study, and you can flip your reference photo into black and white also. And so if you're really struggling with your values, which a lot of my students, that's one of the problems, is they struggle with values, and getting paint dark enough and your colors dark enough. I come in straight. I come in with real saturated colors. And so people sometimes can be scared of that. And that's a great way to be able to look at a value study, is just doing the black and white of your reference and the black and white of your photo. And then it's important on round objects like light bulbs and teapots that they stay rounded. So I'm always cleaning up at the end, some of my last steps, making sure things are the right shape and where they're supposed to be. And you wouldn't think in a little bronze teapot that there would be so many colors. But there are. That's with most objects that you paint. I'll be painting this, a larger version of this. Every time I do a still life setup, I take sometimes over 100 photographs of that still life setup, so that I have multiple ready for a series that I can go back to. And I've gone back actually recently. I've been having a lot of fun. I've been going back to photo references that I did like 10 years ago and revisiting to see if there's something interesting that I didn't, or you have a different perspective now. And so, much to my husband's dismay, who doesn't like the amount of space I take up on the computers, I save all these photos. But I grew up thinking about life as composition. My dad's a photographer, and we would stop. A road trip was never an easy thing. And as a kid, I hated it, but now I do the same thing to my children. So, he will do things like, when I was a kid, we lived in Washington, D.C., and he knew the best shot of the tulips with the Washington Monument was if he laid down in the tulips. So he laid down in the tulips, his body print. And it was a very common thing to have people come up and say, is he okay? Is he having a heart attack? He's fine. He's just getting a shot. But after he got up from taking that picture, a whole line of tourists got right in his body print and took the same picture. But it taught me to think of life that way, as a composition, and always set, how can I set it up? How can I make it more interesting? But I use my iPhone to take all my pictures for the most part. And I like the iPhone because you can get all different angles, bird's eye view, down, inside, up, all different. I kind of get all different angles of still life. Sometimes there's really interesting things that happen from within. And I'm always, you want something interesting, and maybe there's some kind, like what is happening in this still life? Why are these lights at you want some kind of whimsy going on, and that's kind of where I love my idea behind it is life is hard, and so I want to just make beautiful things in this world.
Nice. I will make noise a little bit.
Okay. But with that idea of creating beauty in a still life, I'm pushing limits. So every time I take a photograph, I'm pushing the colors. I want whimsy and magic in every still life, and kind of this idea of how did that naturally happen? That's my favorite when people say, "Where did you get light bulbs that color? What happened? How did you make that happen?" So I like those, like, kind of that little bit of magic and whimsy in my work.
I like to scratch. You heard it.
I love that about these demos. We're all so different that have been paired up together. I love how spontaneous and texture. I would never scratch. Not on purpose, anyway.
But you have to have good paper to do this. Otherwise, finished. But I've seen that on William Turner's work, this famous English watercolorist, and I've seen some originals. And when you go very close to them, it's all destroyed on the surface. It's scratch. It is mix. It is. I don't know what he did, but he tried many things. So I like it. The scratch means for me small whites. And I like to have different scales, big strokes, tape lines, scratch, toothbrush. I try to mix this. I try to play with all this and make something that is alive.
I'm going to pull that off. I have my finished little teapot under there.
Sorry?
The razor blade.
The blade. That's good. So this songwriter has a song that I like, and the title is Stuff That Work. Stuff That Work. So it starts like this. I have a shirt, and I'm so good inside this shirt, I wear it every time. I have a pair of boots. The day I'm working with my boots, but I can dance all night with the same boots. So I like them very much. That's stuff that work. I have a guitar that is always untuned, but I like it so much. I like so much to play in the darkness with my guitar, even it's not tuned, because it works. This is his lyrics. I have an old car, but when I drive, I believe it's going to last ever, because it's so good that old car, and it works. So this is his poetry, everyday things, and stuff that works. You don't handle on the wall. You keep with you always. That is poetry, and I like this. So I like strong paper. That is stuff that works, and also good colors, very important. So I go on. Almost finished.
And my work's the same. I do utilitarian objects, things that we use, and make them beautiful. Stuff that works beautiful. Some, it depends. Some I leave hard, some I soften. It depends on the effect I want. So I may not do all of them, but I'll do a lot of them. It's kind of back and forth. And then, you have the opportunity here, if you want to knock some down, let's say you have too much sparkle, then you can easily, I'll show you, I can cover one up. So I can easily take a yellow or a quin gold and just kind of knock one back here and there. So even if you over mask and have too many sparkles, you can take some out. But I'd rather have too many sparkles than not enough, and then I can knock them back. And then I'll just go through and soften. And I don't have to do much except push from the inside out and soften. I just thought there was some kind of fun whimsy. My muse is light, whether it be strong light in my compositions or physical light bulbs or strands of light. I just love it. And so right now I'm stuck on these little twinkle lights and everything. Correct. Yes. Yes, it makes those hard edges. So I'm just coming in the middle of that white and pushing. And I push out instead of in, otherwise you lose all the white. Then you make sure you wipe off your brush in between. But it softens nicely. And like I said, I shouldn't do that with my good brush. I have my bad hair day brush that I do that a lot with. And then this one, if I had thought, I could have ahead of time masked out my name where my signature is going to go. Or I can paint on top with an opaque to sign. Good question, because I have seen some crazy signature people. So I try to always have my signature it should not be part of something your eye goes to. I've judged some contests and I did not give an award because the signature was so strange. And it should not be in the middle of your painting. Listen, you would be surprised. And listen, I've done it before. When late at night I finished a painting and I signed it in a weird place. So that's another tip I would say. Don't do that when you've painted your wait. But be strategic about your signature, where it is, what color it is, and how big it is, and how many letters you put behind it. I saw one that literally they listed their organization. It was like a foot long in the painting. It makes it easier for judging to not know. Yeah, it does. But there's an art to your signature. And sometimes I'll do it in pencil first and then paint on top, whether I use my ruling pen or a paintbrush, just so that I make sure it's not going to be real strange. Are we at time? All right, I think we're at time. I am going to put some dot cards out of mine. It's first come, first serve. What's there? But I'm going to put some out for you guys.
Finished.
Where did you put your red?
There.
Did they? Oh,
Some
that was
small
nice.
places.
Opera.
I have to remove the
I
tape
have.
for